Maya Johnson sat on the edge of her bed, staring at the boxes still scattered across her new bedroom. The walls were a fresh shade of blue, her choice, but the room still didn't feel like home. Through her window, she could see the perfectly trimmed lawns and large houses of Oak Ridge Heights, a neighborhood very different from their old apartment in the city. "Maya, breakfast is ready," her mother called from downstairs. At 12 years old, Maya was old enough to understand why they had moved. Her father, Marcus Johnson, had recently been appointed as the city's first black police chief. It was a big deal. The local newspaper had run a front-page story with a photo of her dad shaking hands with the mayor. Maya had cut it out and pinned it to her bulletin board. "There's my girl," Marcus said as Maya entered the kitchen. He was already in his uniform, badge gleaming under the kitchen lights. "Ready for your second week at the new school?" Maya shrugged, picking at her pancakes. "I guess." Her mother, Diane, exchanged a worried look with Marcus. "Made any friends yet, Swiggy?" "Not really. Everyone's nice." But Maya trailed off, unsure how to explain the feeling of being different without saying it outright. Marcus nodded, understanding what his daughter wasn't saying. In their 3 weeks in Oak Ridge Heights, he had noticed the subtle looks, the neighbors who smiled but kept their distance, the way conversations sometimes stopped when they approached. "Give it time," he said, squeezing her shoulder. "You're smart, kind, and talented. The right friends will come." After breakfast, Maya grabbed her backpack and stepped outside. The September air was crisp, and the trees lining their street were just beginning to show hints of gold and red. As she walked to the bus stop, Maya noticed Mrs. Peterson from next door watching from her window. The woman quickly moved away when Maya waved. The school bus arrived, and Maya found her usual seat near the middle. Two girls who had been chatting stopped talking as she sat down. Maya put in her earbuds and pretended not to notice. Oak Ridge Middle School was much bigger than her old school, with long hallways that still confused her. In math class, her favorite subject, Maya raised her hand to answer a question about fractions. "That's correct, Maya," Mr. Collins said, looking impressed. "Well done." A few students turned to look at her with surprise. Maya felt a small burst of pride, but also a familiar discomfort. She had always been good at math, but here it seemed to shock people. During lunch, Maya sat at the end of a table, eating alone until Zoe Kim, a quiet girl from her English class, asked if she could join her. "I like your hair," Zoe said, nodding at Maya's braids. Maya smiled. "Thanks. My mom did them yesterday." After school, Maya decided to explore the neighborhood. Her parents had told her it was safe, but to be home before dark. She rode her bike past large houses with wide driveways and expensive cars. An older couple working in their garden stared as she passed. A man walking his dog crossed to the other side of the street. When Maya returned home, she found her father in the garage unpacking boxes. "How was the neighborhood tour?" he asked. Maya hesitated before answering. "Dad, why do people look at us funny?" Marcus put down the box he was holding and sighed. He had hoped for more time before having this conversation. "Sometimes, honey, when you're the first of anything, like the first black family in a neighborhood or the first black police chief, people don't know how to act. Some are curious, some are uncomfortable, and some just need time to adjust." "Is that fair?" Maya asked quietly. "No," Marcus answered honestly. "But part of being the first is showing everyone who comes after you that they belong too." Maya thought about this as she helped her father unpack. She didn't choose to be the first, but maybe, just maybe, she could make it easier for whoever came next. 2 weeks had passed since the Johnson family moved to Oak Ridge Heights. Maya was sitting at the kitchen table on Saturday morning, stirring her cereal while watching her father read the newspaper. "Dad, have you seen the music room at my school?" Maya asked suddenly. Marcus lowered his paper. "No, why?" "It's terrible," Maya said, her eyes wide. "The instruments are so old. My music teacher, Ms. Rivera, says they haven't had new equipment in 8 years. Diane joined them at the table with a cup of coffee. That's surprising for a school in this neighborhood. "Ms. Rivera says the school spends most money on sports," Maya explained. She tried to start a fundraiser, but nobody wanted to help. Marcus and Diane shared a look. Their daughter had always been passionate about music, playing both piano and clarinet since she was 7. "Maybe you could help," Marcus suggested. What does the music program need? Maya's face lit up. New instruments, sheet music, and repairs for the piano. Ms. Rivera says they need about $2,000. That's a lot of money, Diane commented. I know. Maya jumped up, excitement building, but I have an idea. What if I go door to door in our neighborhood for donations? All these big houses, the people here must have money. Marcus frowned slightly. I'm not sure about that, honey. Going to strangers' houses by yourself. But Dad, you're the police chief, Maya argued. And you always say we should help our community. Marcus couldn't argue with his own words. After a long discussion, Maya's parents agreed to her plan, with conditions. She would only visit houses during daylight hours, carry her cell phone at all times, and her mother would create official forms with the school's information. On Monday, Maya spoke with Ms. Rivera, who was thrilled by the idea. The music teacher helped Maya create proper donation forms with the school letterhead and contacted the principal, who approved the fundraiser. By Saturday, Maya was ready. She wore a neat blue shirt with her school logo, carried a folder with the official forms, and had her school ID card on a lanyard around her neck. Her mother had helped her create a short speech. Remember, be home by 5:30, Diane reminded her as Maya headed out. Maya started at the houses closest to hers. Her first stop was the Wilsons, an elderly couple who had brought cookies when they moved in. What a wonderful initiative, Mrs. Wilson said, writing a check for $50. Encouraged, Maya continued. Most neighbors were kind, though some said no or pretended not to be home. By 4:30, Maya had raised over $300 and was feeling proud of herself. This is amazing, she told herself, checking her list of houses. Just a few more to go. The next house belonged to Karen Whitley, the neighborhood watch coordinator. Maya had seen her at community meetings with her father, but had never spoken to her. The large white house had perfectly trimmed hedges and a protected by security system sign in the yard. Maya took a deep breath and rang the doorbell. Through the glass panels beside the door, she could see movement. The door opened, revealing a thin woman with blonde hair cut in a sharp bob. She wore expensive-looking yoga clothes and seemed surprised to see Maya. Hello, Mrs. Whitley, Maya said politely. My name is Maya Johnson. I live down the street, and I'm raising money for my school's music program. Karen Whitley's face changed slightly, her smile not reaching her eyes. Johnson? I don't recall any Johnsons on this street. We moved in 3 weeks ago, Maya explained, reaching for her folder. I have the official forms from my school if you'd like to see them. Our music program really needs help. Karen crossed her arms. And you're going door to door by yourself? Where are your parents? Maya felt a small knot form in her stomach, but remembered her father's words about standing tall. My mother is at home, and my father is at work. I have permission to do this fundraiser. Karen's eyes narrowed as she looked at Maya's folder and school ID. The atmosphere grew tense, and Maya sensed this visit wasn't going to end with a donation. Karen Whitley stared at Maya with suspicious eyes. She took the fundraising form from Maya's hand but barely glanced at it. This doesn't look official to me, Karen said coldly, handing it back. What did you say your name was again? Maya Johnson, she repeated, trying to keep her voice steady. I live at 1842 Maple Drive. We just moved here. Johnson, I don't recall any new families moving to Maple Drive, Karen said, her voice getting sharper. And I'm the neighborhood watch coordinator. I know everyone. Maya's heart beat faster. She pulled out her school ID. Here's my school ID, and the forms have the school letterhead and my music teacher's signature. Karen barely looked at the ID. Anyone could make that on a computer. A car drove by slowly, and Karen glanced at it before turning back to Maya with a harder expression. Look, I don't know what you're trying to pull here, but this neighborhood has had problems with scams before. People coming door to door pretending to raise money. It's not a scam, Maya insisted, feeling her cheeks grow hot. You can call the school and ask for Ms. Rivera, or my parents. My dad is. I'm sure your dad would have a lot to say, Karen interrupted, making air quotes with her fingers. But I think it's time for you to move along. Maya felt her stomach tighten. She had faced people like Karen before, people who decided who she was before knowing her. Her father had taught her how to handle these situations, stay calm, be polite, and walk away if needed. Thank you for your time, Maya said quietly, putting her forms back in her folder. She turned to leave. Wait right there, Karen called out. Where are you going? Who else have you visited in this neighborhood? Maya stopped at the end of the driveway. Just some houses on this street and the next one over. Karen pulled out her phone. I'm calling the police. They need to know someone is going around collecting money from people. Maya's eyes widened. But I'm not doing anything wrong. Karen turned away, phone to her ear. Maya could hear her speaking. Yes, I need to report a suspicious person going door to door in Oak Ridge Heights. Yes, it's a young girl, but she doesn't live here. No, I've never seen her before. Yes, claiming to raise money for school, but the form looks fake. Maya stood frozen, unsure what to do. She had been taught to respect adults, but this felt wrong. Her father had also taught her about her rights. She wasn't breaking any laws. The police are on their way, Karen announced, crossing her arms. They'll sort this out. I should call my parents, Maya said, reaching for her phone. No, you stay right there, Karen ordered. The police will contact your parents if necessary. Maya's hands trembled as she weighed her options. Running would make her look guilty. Calling her dad might make things worse if he came rushing over angry. But staying here with this woman who clearly didn't believe anything about her seemed dangerous too. I'm going to wait on the sidewalk, Maya decided, moving to the public space. That's not your property. Karen's face flushed red. Don't you dare get smart with me. This is exactly the kind of behavior I'm talking about. No respect. Maya stood on the sidewalk, clutching her folder to her chest. She typed a quick text to her mother. At house on Oak Street. Woman called police on me for fundraising. I'm okay but scared. 5 minutes passed like 5 hours. Maya saw 2 patrol cars turning onto the street, moving slowly with their lights on but no sirens. She recognized one of the officers as Officer Rodriguez, who had visited their house for dinner last week. As the police cars pulled up, Karen straightened her shirt and walked down her driveway with a satisfied expression. That's her, officers, Karen said loudly, pointing at Maya. Going door to door with some fake school fundraiser story. Officer Rodriguez stepped out of his car, recognition flashing across his face when he saw Maya. His partner, Officer Bennett, joined him. Hello, Maya, Officer Rodriguez said calmly. Everything okay? Before Maya could answer, Karen stepped between them. You know this girl? Yes, ma'am, Officer Bennett replied. This is Maya Johnson. Johnson? Karen repeated, confusion crossing her face. That's right, Officer Rodriguez said. Chief Johnson's daughter. Karen Whitley's mouth opened slightly, her eyes darting between Maya and the officers. Chief Johnson? The new police chief? Yes, ma'am, Officer Rodriguez confirmed, his tone professional but cool. Maya's father is Chief Marcus Johnson. There must be some mistake, Karen said quickly. This girl told me she was raising money for her school, but the form looked suspicious. Officer Bennett turned to Maya. Can we see the fundraising materials, Maya? Maya handed over her folder, grateful that her hands had stopped shaking. Officer Bennett examined the forms carefully, showing them to Officer Rodriguez. These look completely legitimate, Officer Bennett said. School letterhead, proper signatures, contact information for the music teacher. Karen crossed her arms defensively. Well, how was I supposed to know? We've had problems with scammers in this neighborhood before. Officer Rodriguez handed the folder back to Maya. Ms. Whitley, Maya is conducting an approved school fundraiser. She has the proper documentation and identification. I showed her my school ID, Maya added quietly, and I told her my address and that my family just moved here. Officer Bennett nodded and took out his radio. I think we should inform the chief about this situation. Karen's face paled. Is that really necessary? It was just a misunderstanding. Standard procedure, Officer Rodriguez replied. When officers are called to respond to a minor, we need to contact the parents. Officer Bennett spoke into his radio. Chief Johnson, this is Officer Bennett. We're responding to a call on Oak Street involving your daughter Maya. The radio crackled, and Chief Johnson's voice came through clearly. Is she okay? Yes, sir, Officer Bennett answered. She was conducting her school fundraiser when a resident called us about a suspicious person going door to door. There was a brief pause before the chief responded. I'll be there in 5 minutes. Karen Whitley looked increasingly uncomfortable. She glanced at her watch and then at her house, as if considering retreating inside. Maybe we should just forget the whole thing, she suggested. I don't want to waste the chief's time over a simple misunderstanding. The chief is already on his way, Officer Rodriguez said firmly. And this isn't a waste of time. False reports tie up police resources and can have serious consequences. Maya stood quietly on the sidewalk, watching the situation unfold. She had texted her mother that the police had arrived and she was safe. Her phone buzzed with a reply. Dad is on his way. Stay calm. Love you. A few neighbors had noticed the police cars and were watching from their yards or windows. Maya felt their eyes on her, but she stood tall, remembering her father's words about dignity. 4 minutes later, an unmarked police car pulled up beside the patrol cars. Chief Marcus Johnson stepped out, still in his full uniform from a community meeting he had been attending. At 6'2" with broad shoulders, he had a commanding presence that made several onlookers step back. Maya, he called, walking directly to his daughter first. Are you all right? I'm okay, Dad, Maya answered, relief flooding through her. Chief Johnson looked her over carefully, then placed a gentle hand on her shoulder before turning to his officers. Report, please. Officer Rodriguez explained the situation while Officer Bennett showed the chief the fundraising materials. Karen Whitley stood rigid, her face a mixture of shock and embarrassment as she realized her mistake. When the officers finished, Chief Johnson nodded and turned to face Karen. His expression was calm but serious. Ms. Whitley, I believe. Karen nodded stiffly. Yes, I'm Karen Whitley, the Neighborhood Watch Coordinator. I see, Chief Johnson said. Then you and I should already be acquainted. I spoke at your Neighborhood Watch meeting last week. Karen's face flushed deep red. I wasn't able to attend that meeting. That's unfortunate, Chief Johnson replied. Because if you had, you would have seen my family photos during my introduction presentation, including pictures of my daughter Maya. The silence that followed was deafening. Several neighbors had moved closer to hear the conversation, and Karen seemed to shrink under their watching eyes. Chief Johnson, Karen began, I was just trying to keep the neighborhood safe. Chief Johnson looked at Karen Whitley with calm, steady eyes. The tension in the air was thick enough to cut with a knife. Several neighbors had now gathered at a respectful distance, watching the scene unfold. Keeping neighborhoods safe is important, Miss Whitley, Chief Johnson said. His voice was controlled, but those who knew him well could hear the anger beneath his professional tone. That's why I became a police officer 20 years ago. Karen shifted her weight from one foot to another. I understand that, Chief. But you have to admit, door-to-door solicitations can be suspicious. My daughter was carrying official school documentation, wearing her school ID, and gave you her address, Chief Johnson replied. She explained her fundraiser clearly. What exactly made you suspicious? Karen opened her mouth, then closed it again. The real answer hung in the air, unspoken but understood by everyone present. Officer Rodriguez stepped closer to the chief. Sir, we've confirmed the fundraiser is legitimate. How would you like us to proceed? Chief Johnson considered for a moment, looking at his daughter. Maya stood tall despite the embarrassment of the situation. He felt a surge of pride at her composure. This is an opportunity for education, not punishment, he finally said. He turned to Karen. Ms. Whitley, may I speak with you privately for a moment? Karen glanced nervously at the gathering crowd. I suppose so. Officers, please see that Maya is comfortable, Chief Johnson instructed. I'll just be a moment. Chief Johnson led Karen a few steps away, just far enough that their conversation couldn't be overheard. Maya watched as her father spoke calmly, his face serious but not angry. Karen's expression changed from defensive to embarrassed as he continued speaking. Officer Bennett brought Maya a bottle of water from his patrol car. You okay, kiddo? Maya nodded. I just wanted to raise money for our music program. That's a good cause, Officer Rodriguez said with a smile. My daughter plays violin at Westside Middle School. I play clarinet, Maya told him, feeling more at ease. Across the lawn, The conversation between Chief Johnson and Karen was wrapping up. Karen was nodding repeatedly, her earlier defensiveness replaced by what looked like genuine regret. They walked back to the group together. Karen looked directly at Maya for the first time without suspicion. "Maya, I owe you an apology," Karen said, her voice quieter than before. "I jumped to conclusions and didn't give you a fair chance to explain yourself. I'm sorry." Maya glanced at her father, who gave her an encouraging nod. "Thank you for apologizing," she said politely. Chief Johnson addressed the officers. "This matter is resolved. Thank you for your professionalism in handling the situation." The officers nodded and returned to their patrol cars. The neighbors, seeing that the drama was over, slowly dispersed, though a few lingered, whispering among themselves. Chief Johnson placed his hand gently on Maya's shoulder. "Let's go home, Maya. I think that's enough fundraising for today." As they turned to leave, Karen called out, "Wait." They paused as Karen walked over to her purse on the porch and returned with her checkbook. She wrote quickly and tore out a check. "For the music program," she said, handing it to Maya. "It's the least I can do." Maya looked down at the check. $200 made out to Oak Ridge Middle School Music Department. "Thank you," Maya said quietly. As they walked to Chief Johnson's car, Maya looked up at her father. "Are you mad at her, Dad?" Chief Johnson sighed. "I'm disappointed in her actions, but I'm trying to understand them. People fear what they don't know, Maya. Sometimes the best response to ignorance is education." "Will things get better?" Maya asked as they reached the car. "Change doesn't happen overnight," her father answered honestly. "But every conversation, every understanding that grows between people brings us one step closer." As they drove away, Maya looked back at Karen's house. The woman still stood in her driveway, watching them leave, the expression on her face unreadable. The Johnson family sat around their dining table that evening. Maya pushed her food around her plate, still upset from the day's events. Her mother had made her favorite pasta, trying to cheer her up. "I don't understand," Diane said, shaking her head. "How could she not know who you were? Marcus, didn't you say you showed family photos at that neighborhood meeting?" "I did," Chief Johnson confirmed. "But Karen Whitley wasn't there, apparently." "Or she didn't pay attention," Maya said quietly. Chief Johnson put down his fork. "Maya, I've been thinking about what happened today. There's something important we could do, but I wanted to ask how you feel about it first." Maya looked up. "What is it?" "I'm considering inviting Ms. Whitley to come talk with us," he explained. "Not to make you uncomfortable, but to have an honest conversation about what happened and why." Maya's eyes widened. "You want to invite her here? To our house?" "Only if you're okay with it," her father assured her. "Sometimes, the best way to change people's thinking is to have them see things differently, to meet the people they'd made assumptions about." Diane reached over and squeezed Maya's hand. "You don't have to decide right now, sweetie." Maya thought about it while picking at her dinner. Part of her never wanted to see Karen Whitley again, but another part remembered her father's words about education being better than punishment. "Okay," Maya finally said, "but can we do it somewhere else? Not in our house." "That's a good idea," her father agreed. "How about we meet at that coffee shop near the park? Neutral ground." The next day, Chief Johnson called Karen Whitley. The conversation was brief, but she agreed to meet them that afternoon at the Oak Ridge Cafe. Maya felt nervous as they walked into the coffee shop. Her mother had come along for support. Karen was already there, sitting at a corner table with a mug between her hands. She looked up when they entered, her face flushing red. She stood awkwardly as they approached. "Thank you for coming, Miss Whitley," Chief Johnson said formally. "Please, call me Karen," she replied, her voice quieter than it had been yesterday. They sat down, Maya between her parents. A waitress came over, and they ordered drinks, hot chocolate for Maya, coffee for the adults. "I want to start by apologizing again," Karen said after the waitress left. "I'm truly sorry for how I treated you, Maya." Maya nodded but didn't say anything. "I'd like to understand what happened," Chief Johnson said. "When my daughter told you who she was and showed you her ID, why didn't you believe her?" Karen looked down at her mug. "I guess I didn't expect." She paused, struggling to find the right words. "You didn't expect someone who looks like Maya to live in our neighborhood," Diane finished for her. Karen's shoulders slumped slightly. Yes, she admitted. I didn't think any. I hadn't seen. Any black families in Oak Ridge Heights? Chief Johnson supplied. Yes, Karen said, looking genuinely embarrassed. I've lived here 15 years, and until recently, there weren't any black families in our immediate area. When Maya came to my door, I'd automatically assumed she was from outside the neighborhood, even though she had identification and paperwork. Diane asked. I didn't really look at them properly, Karen admitted. I had already made up my mind. Chief Johnson leaned forward. Do you understand what that kind of assumption does to a child? To be treated as suspicious just because of how she looks? Maya looked up, finding her voice. It made me feel like I didn't belong in my own neighborhood, like I was doing something wrong when I wasn't. Karen's eyes filled with tears. I never thought about it that way. I was just being cautious. There's a difference between caution and prejudice, Chief Johnson said firmly, but not unkindly. One is based on actual suspicious behavior. The other is based on what someone looks like. Karen nodded slowly. I see that now. And I'm truly sorry, Maya. What I did was wrong. The conversation continued as they sipped their drinks. For the first time, Maya saw Karen as a real person, someone who had made a mistake and was trying to learn from it. It didn't erase the hurt, but it was a start. News about the incident spread quickly through Oak Ridge Heights. By Monday morning, Maya could feel eyes following her as she walked to the school bus stop. This time, though, the looks were different, some sympathetic, others embarrassed, and a few neighbors even waved or called out good morning. At school, Ms. Rivera, the music teacher, greeted Maya with a hug. I heard what happened, she said gently. Are you doing okay? Maya nodded. I think so. I still got some donations before. That's not what I'm worried about, Ms. Rivera said, her eyes kind. What happened to you wasn't right. During lunch, Maya was surprised when several students she barely knew asked to sit with her. Zoe, her only friend so far, made room at their table. Everyone's talking about what happened, Zoe whispered. My mom said your dad handled it really well. Is it true that woman cried when she found out who your dad was? Asked Tyler, a boy from Maya's math class. Not exactly, Maya said, uncomfortable with the attention. It wasn't like that. By the end of the school day, Principal Harmon called Maya to his office. He was a tall man with salt and pepper hair who always wore bow ties. Maya, I want you to know how sorry I am about what happened, he said. No student should experience what you did while representing our school. It's okay, Maya replied automatically. No, it's not okay, Principal Harmon said firmly. But we're going to make changes to ensure it doesn't happen again. Starting next week, all students doing fundraising will receive official school badges and vests. I've already ordered them. As Maya left school, she saw her mother waiting in the car instead of letting her take the bus. How was school? Diane asked as Maya climbed in. Different, Maya admitted. Everyone knows what happened. Diane nodded. Your father got a lot of calls today. The story made it to social media. Great, Maya groaned, sinking into her seat. It's not all bad, her mother said. Sometimes it takes an incident like this to start important conversations. When they arrived home, Maya was surprised to see several neighbors in their front yard. Mrs. Peterson from next door, the Wilsons, and a few others she recognized from her fundraising efforts stood talking with her father, who had come home early. There she is, her father said as Maya got out of the car. Mrs. Peterson stepped forward. Maya, we wanted to come by and show our support. What happened to you was wrong. Mr. Wilson nodded. We've started a neighborhood petition to make sure something like this doesn't happen again. And we all chipped in for your music program, added a woman Maya had met briefly during her fundraising. She handed Chief Johnson an envelope. Maya's father opened it and looked inside, his eyebrows rising in surprise. This is very generous. It's over $1,500, Mrs. Peterson explained. Almost every house on the block contributed. We want Maya to know she belongs here, just like anyone else. Maya felt a lump form in her throat. Thank you, she managed to say. That evening, local news vans parked on their street. A reporter approached as the family returned from dinner. Chief Johnson, can we get a statement about the racial profiling incident involving your daughter? The reporter asked, holding out a microphone. Chief Johnson looked at Maya, silently asking if she was okay with him responding. She nodded. "What happened to my daughter reflects a larger issue in our community," he said calmly, "but I've been encouraged by the response. Real change happens when people recognize a problem and work together to address it." "And Maya, how do you feel?" the reporter asked. Maya hesitated, then spoke clearly. "I was hurt and embarrassed, but I also saw how many good people live here who want things to be better." Later that night, as Maya was getting ready for bed, her phone buzzed with a text message from an unknown number. "Maya, this is Karen Whitley. I saw you on the news. You spoke with such grace. I've been thinking about our conversation. Would your music program be interested in having a fundraising concert at the community center? I'm on the board, and we'd like to help. Let me know." Maya stared at the message, surprised but also hopeful. Maybe good things could come from difficult moments after all. 6 months had passed since the incident that changed Oak Ridge Heights. The community center buzzed with activity as people filed in for the first annual Harmony in the Heights benefit concert for the school's music program. Maya stood backstage, peeking through the curtains at the packed audience. She could see her parents in the front row, her father in a suit instead of his uniform, and her mother beaming with pride. Next to them sat Principal Harmon and several teachers from school. "Nervous?" Ms. Rivera asked, adjusting Maya's sheet music. "A little," Maya admitted. Her clarinet felt slippery in her sweaty hands. "You'll be wonderful," the music teacher assured her. "And remember, we've already raised more than $5,000 from ticket sales alone." The success of the fundraiser had exceeded everyone's expectations. What started as Maya's door-to-door effort had transformed into a community-wide initiative. The music program had already purchased new instruments, and plans for a recording studio were underway. 5 minutes, everyone called Karen Whitley, who had taken on the role of event coordinator. She wore a name tag that read Community Liaison, a new position created by Chief Johnson to build stronger relationships between the police department and residents. Karen caught Maya's eye and gave her a thumbs up. Their relationship had evolved from that tense confrontation to a cautious understanding and eventually to genuine respect. It hadn't been easy. There were uncomfortable moments and difficult conversations, but both had been willing to learn and grow. The lights dimmed, and Principal Harmon stepped onto the stage to welcome everyone. "Tonight is about more than music," he said. "It's about how a community can come together and turn a challenging moment into positive change." He explained how the incident 6 months ago had sparked important discussions about assumptions, inclusion, and belonging. The school had implemented new diversity programs, and the neighborhood watch had received training on bias awareness. And now, Principal Harmon announced, "Please welcome the students who made all this possible." The curtain rose, revealing Maya and 20 other students with their instruments. As they played their first piece, a challenging arrangement of "What a Wonderful World," Maya felt a surge of pride. Her solo was coming up, and for once, she wasn't worried about standing out or being different. In the audience, Chief Johnson reached for his wife's hand. They watched their daughter perform with confidence and joy, remembering how uncertain she had been when they first moved to the neighborhood. After the concert, a reception was held in the community center's garden. Maya was surprised by how many people came to congratulate her, including some who had once looked at her with suspicion. "You were amazing," Zoe said, hugging her friend. Over the months, their friendship had deepened, and Maya now had a wide circle of friends at school. Maya called a voice. She turned to see Mrs. Whitley approaching with a tall man in a business suit. "This is Mr. Davis from the City Arts Council," Karen explained. "He was very impressed with the concert and has some news." Mr. Davis smiled warmly. "The council has decided to match all funds raised tonight for your music program, and we'd like to offer you a scholarship to our summer music camp." Maya's eyes widened in surprise. "Thank you, sir." As the evening wound down, Maya found herself standing with her father near the entrance, watching people leave with smiles on their faces. "You know," Chief Johnson said quietly, "when I took this job, I hoped to make a difference in this community. I never expected my 12-year-old daughter would end up teaching everyone more than I could." Maya leaned against her father's side. "Do you think things will stay better, or will people forget and go back to how they were?" Chief Johnson considered this seriously. "Change isn't a one-time event, Maya. It's a process that needs care and attention. There will be steps backward sometimes, but tonight shows me that the people here are willing to keep moving forward. As if to prove his point, they watched Karen Whitley helping an elderly black couple to their car, chatting and laughing like old friends. You know what Ms. Rivera says about music? Maya asked. That harmony doesn't mean everyone plays the same note. It means different notes working together to create something beautiful. Chief Johnson smiled and put his arm around his daughter's shoulders. Sounds like a good way to build a community too.